5 o'clock New York Times. Today's topic is, are Trump's threats against Iran effective? And what I mean by that, do they resonate with the mullahs? There's been a pause in the action. There had been a pause in the action. The reason for the pause, it's a question of veracity. On the one hand, we know that Central Command has told the president they're running out of munitions and cannot sustain the attack in the manner in which they have been occurring. It's time to back off. As a matter of fact, we have accomplished everything that we can militarily based on the current campaign as directed. The president, of course, maybe because it's true or maybe because he's trying to face, says the Iranians asked us to stop so that we can concentrate on negotiations. And then yesterday, the Iranians attacked U.S. military assets in Jordan. I was a little surprised that Central Command called it an attempted surprise attack. I don't believe for a moment that to the Central Command that attack was a surprise. I'm sure that they were prepared as they were, because they did successfully repel, they say, the attacks. That it's not a surprise, it's a potentiality when it comes to Iran. And so how is it a surprise? You're prepared for it. But that's called it a surprise attack. Well, that of course pissed the president off. Okay, so I'm going to use words that are not mine. These are the words of your president, ladies and gentlemen, your president. He gets on the phone to Fox today. He talks to Trey Yingst, who was a great correspondent in Tel Aviv. He's a terrific war correspondent. And this is what the president said about this so-called surprise attack to Fox News. Quote, "We're going to beat the fucking shit out of them." So President of the United States, this is not Nixon venting in the privacy of the Oval Office and being caught on the hidden microphones. This is exactly what he said. He also said, according to Yingst, quote, "We'll be hitting them hard." That's what he said. We're going to beat the effing shit out of them. We'll be hitting them hard. They're going to get a beating. So, he comes up with all of these bombastic comments just a day before he talked about attacking the bridges and power plants of Iran, which is something that even a number of Republican senators who have been solidly in his corner find objectionable, because they are on the record even as saying nobody wants the United States targeting targets that can result in civilian casualties. They've been very, very specific about the targeting. By the way, yes, early on in all of this, a school was hit. And it should not have happened. And it was a big F-up by somebody in the military. But there is zero evidence to show that that was intended as a school being a target. It's not like the Pentagon said, "Hey, Mr. President, we can really mess with that Iranian regime." Well, right here, right outside a military base, there's a school full of girls. We could break their back by blowing up the school. I don't think that conversation occurred. I think all the evidence suggests that it was a case of mistaken usage of the facility. I think they didn't follow the intel because the intel that they were using was dated because that school had been used for other purposes. That building had been repurposed as a school. And it's a monumental screw up, and it got compounded by the cover-up. Well, we're not so sure that it was our cruise missile that did that. We're still investigating, but we believe that it was an errant Iranian rocket. Look, just admit that you screwed up and get on with life. Because sooner or later it's going to come out, and it's going to feed this whole propaganda argument about how horrific the Americans are when it comes to war crimes. For that to be a war crime, it has to be deliberate. Again, it should never have happened. But it did. And God bless those kids and their family members.
Oops.
All Americans should have empathy for that. But as we hear the president's commentary, which gets more and more and more strident, and this is the strongest public statement that he has ever made, to my knowledge anyway, and I've obviously followed this pretty closely. I'm sure it's designed to scare the regime into thinking, oh boy, we better be careful, we're close to crossing a line, and that's the end of us. Because he said that he can bring them to their knees in hours. That's what he said. I'm wondering, and I don't know that anybody here really has the answer to the question, of course. And as I wrote on my social media when I posed this question this morning, I asked, or I said, man, I wish I was a Farsi-speaking fly on the wall. Because I'd really like to know how they're sitting around the table having their tea, because I know they don't drink, because they're all good Muslims, sipping on their tea and discussing this issue. Are they really shaking in their boots because the president said something like this and combined with these other pronouncements that he's made? Or do you think that they realize they got us exactly where they need us, which is at a stalemate, a quagmire? Because let's be honest, they're as much attuned to public sentiment in the United States as you and I are. His ratings, he's underwater, especially with regard to this war. It's no secret. We're an open society. Everybody can see it. And maybe it's like they're just laughing their asses off when they hear him make comments like this. I don't know. Maybe there's something up his sleeve and they're aware of it, or maybe they're unaware of it, where he actually can bring them to their knees within hours, and he's been restrained up until now, but now he's so pissed off, this is his final warning, and they better heed it. I don't know. So, what do you all think about this? I'm going to start calling people in the order in which I see them on the stage, and today that order begins with Alan, followed by Marshall.
Hello everyone, what happened to Scott?
I was behind the sky.
Yeah, I don't know. He'll be back.
I hope you're all doing good. Big hello to Miss Lees, all the way in New Jersey. Hope she's doing well and everybody else. I really like to hear Mr. Amir thoughts on this one. To be honest with you, Gary, it's a lot of yelling and screaming from both sides. It mainly, Trump has to have a show from the American. Well, the mullahs, they have to have a show from the Iranian.
Which mullahs? They don't exist. Mojtaba Khamenei is dead, for all we know.
Excuse me? Andrew, Mojtaba Khamenei, he was one tiny finger. Come on.
Okay, he's one tiny finger of how
So,
many hands?
Andrew, in this
Many
room,
of them. Andrew, many of them.
Andrew, in this room, we speak one at a time. I will get to you. Go ahead, Alan.
Andrew, my friend, maybe you don't know me. I was born in Tehran. Probably,
Andrew, hold on a second, Alan. Andrew, I'm going to tell you the room rules one other time because you're brand new. We speak one at a time. We don't interrupt one another, and I will get to you. So hold your thought. I want to hear what you have to say, but you have to wait your turn, please. Okay, Alan, please proceed.
Gary, it's your show. If next time you jump on me, I'm gonna kick him out of the room and I'll leave.
He just send me a thank you.
I'll leave the. Stop sending me shit.
Anyway, to the point of the room, the topic du jour, you say that both sides are full of bravado. But it's also, isn't it true, Alan, a question of veracity?
Yes.
So here we look at the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
We have a president of the United States who says, we control the Strait of Hormuz, it's open. We've got the mullahs who say, ha 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 ha, if the Strait of Hormuz is open, why has not one U.S. flag ship gone through the Strait of Hormuz since February 28th? And the other day when this little exchange occurred, the previous day, there were 4 ships that went through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it used to be 140 a day. So, I don't know, maybe the Strait of Hormuz is controlled by the United States and open, but when you weigh all of this and you measure the veracity, I think most people might question whether the president is, shall we say, misleading on his pronouncements.
Well, he is misleading on his pronouns, but that doesn't he's deliberately misleading. The Strait of Hormuz, he is right in one point, is open. I'd like to hear Amir's opinion on that one too, because this is what my opinion, this is what the information I get from my sources. The Strait of Hormuz, the way Trump says, the Strait of Hormuz is open because certain ship, they go and come based on how much money they pay to Iran, and they go in and they come out. So he says this, which me and you, we don't see, and we don't have the equipment to see how many ship goes and comes. They tell us what they need to tell us, or what is a necessity we hear. That's the whole thing is. But it's been open. They charging 2 million something per day, and they let the people go.
So what you're describing,
but
what you're describing, to whatever extent the strait is open, what you're describing is that Iran is in control of the Strait.
Exactly.
But the president has told us,
of course,
that the United States is in control of the Strait of Hormuz.
Come on. Where is the common sense? You think president's gonna tell us Iran is controlling the Strait of Hormuz right in the midterm and this and that? He has to tell us that we're winning. He has to give us something for the voting. It's a sad. Iran is looking for stay in the power and cash out on this situation. United States is working for the politics, and 8 to 10, 20 people get executed every night. You're not seeing my page, and I'm heartbroken because you see these young girls, young guys, they are executed for what? You know how many people, 350 people they killed a few nights ago in the city of Esfahan? 600 something they were injured. They shoot this guy, 22 years old, in the heart, and they shoot his friend next to him with the BB guns or, shotguns. They spread all those little bullets and go all to his face. And he's blind. But this is the price they do. And they're not giving up. They are not giving up. They says everybody, every Iranian, they owe to this country. And we give our death, maybe we clear our own. What did we owe to this country? Well, same thing happened. 1977, 78, these people fall for it. The lefties and idiots in Iran, mainly the college students, they thought the grass is greener in the other side. They did this in the 47 years. This nation, young nation, it's paying the price.
So
It's
the bottom
paying the
line,
price.
Alan, is do you believe that when the President of the United States says things such as, again, direct quote, we're
No,
going to beat the fucking shit out of them, that the mullahs even pay attention to that or care? Do you think it's scaring them?
no, are you kidding me? No. They know both of them. They having a show for certain group in Iran, and President Trump has a show for the American. That's it.
It's all performative. Thank you, Alan. We'll go to Marshall, followed by Scott.
Hey, Gary.
I don't put a bunch of stock in his statement about him. He criticized Obama for putting a red line on the table and then not adhering to it. He frequently gets frustrated and says, I want to destroy this or that. I don't put a lot of stock in people who just get on TV and say, I'm going to destroy this or that. I'll just wait until they actually do it. So I don't put much stock in his, oh my gosh, we're finally coming to get you. No, we've been getting you for the last 4 or 5 months, and it's not done much. And so it strikes me as rather impotent to get on TV and say, bring you to your knees in a matter of hours. Well, if that were the truth, you'd have done it already. So I don't have much faith in it at all.
I got no faith in people that
So
talk
what do you
big.
say,
I hate Donald
Marshall, to Alan?
I hate him.
That it's all performative
I stand
for
bad.
domestic consumption. And the mullahs understand that, and it means nothing to them, and it causes us to gather in the critical thinking forum to try to analyze what he said, which is really what his intent is.
I'm not sure how entirely performative it is. I think he actually may believe some of the stuff that's coming out of his mouth. I just find it to be impotent.
Donald Trump is impotent.
The person who has a bigger gun
what?
doesn't brag about having a bigger
How
gun. They just pull
braggadocio.
the bigger gun out and use it when they have to.
Marshall's
They
the
don't
real G.
talk about it.
Marshall's the real
Right,
G. He's
that's-
the real
that's
mafia. Marshall's the real genius, the strategic.
And he does
Michael Corleone. I'm a girl. My pronoun is girl.
Is one of not being honest. And so I have a very hard time in taking it seriously. To me,
Oh, we
it's
can't
just,
take Trump seriously.
Yet another thing the president
All
has
bellicose.
opened his mouth and flapped his gums about.
Hello?
I just don't know. I don't have any.
I don't
I don't
know.
have any.
I don't know. Fuck
I
it. I don't
If he could have
know.
brought the regime to
Hello?
heal in a matter of hours, he wouldn't be spending billions of dollars a day. He would have just brought them to heal. which makes me
Hello?
think he is just whining. And I, in my personal life, I can't stand whining.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think it is weak-kneed. I think it is
Marshall's so strong in the
annoying,
knees.
irritating. I
He
don't know how much
hates
of this is for
whining.
internal
But are you
consumption.
fucking whining right now, production
There's a part
alert?
of this to me which seems like maybe it's not for internal consumption. Maybe it's just Trump being Trump. And he's
Trump
mad,
being
so he's going to get on TV and say a bunch of stupid stuff. So, I don't know. If he were serious, he'd already done something about it. Just saying you're going to do something strikes me as weak need. Strikes me as, paper tiger is what comes to mind for me.
Well, we know that this is an atypical presidency, and we also know
It's
that
not
people
normal.
knew that this would be
When
an
things
atypical
go back to
presidency,
normal.
and the majority of people voted in the manner in which they did in the states that resulted in electoral college votes that caused for him to be returned to the Oval Office.
Yeah.
So,
He wins both the electoral college and the popular vote, right? Like,
right, yeah, you got the popular vote also this time.
Yeah,
Right, so even if we didn't have the electoral college, he would have been elected. We know it's atypical. We know that a lot of people like it when it's atypical. You're right that in previous iterations of presidencies, there would be a massive attack, and after the massive attack was underway, there would be an Oval Office address to the nation, my fellow Americans. I have today ordered a massive attack on Iran. We are doing this, and this. May God bless the United States of America, and then fade to black. Not this president. So perhaps there are those, as has been expressed on the stage occasionally, that this is what they want, this kind of bravado. They want, go out and win one for the coach kind of locker room talk that geeks up the football players to go out there on the gridiron and win. That may very well be the case for some people, but I think many people are with you, Marshall. But with regard to how the Iranian leadership views this, what do you reckon their view of it?
Probably the same as mine. Talks cheap.
Marshall speaks for the
Trump's
Iranians.
certainly good at talking. So, talk is extremely cheap. It doesn't take anything
Then you're worth nothing,
to
faggot.
be bombastic or blustery. All it takes is somebody to flap their gums.
Thank you, Marshall. We'll go to Scott, followed by Yossi.
So I think, look, I mean, I feel like I'm so repetitive. I say the same things now all the time on this show. You're not gonna. I think Trump looks at the regime, I think, through eyes that are, again, sort of like liberal Western eyes. Not that I think Trump is an illiberal figure, but I mean, I think he looks at them like he's dealing with a Western liberal democracy that cares about its people, whose leadership feels political pressure as things get worse in their country, as facts on the ground are tough, as economic situations are tough. I don't think that's the case here, And so, when a liberal regime fights an illiberal autocratic regime, the illiberal autocratic regime has the advantage of having strong stomachs and being able to take a beating, because Russia's the same way, right? I mean, largely, you have the advantage of, you don't have to really put the popular opinion or the lives of your people.
Scott, I have to ask you one question.
You have to wait, sir. You have to wait, sir. Your turn.
Why Trump make bomb?
Oh, okay.
Are you crazy?
Thank you very much.
It could have been
Go ahead,
Kitover.
Scott.
I don't know. So I think that's a reality, right? And I think that Trump has misreads. It's like a poker player, which poker anybody's played, but the old adage in Casino Royale, great James Bond movie, probably the best in the franchise. James Bond says to this woman who doesn't know anything about poker, said, "You never play your cards, you always play the man across from you." And a lot is true, unless you have a straight flush or something. Then sometimes you do play the cards, but largely, you're playing a game where you're trying to you read the person, and he's just consistently misreading, I think, the regime. And so, on that regard, and I think, you can win a lot of battles and lose a war, which we saw in Vietnam. How many battles did we lose, right? This can happen, right?
It's like Nick 68. This ain't nothing.
Folks who are fans of
If
the war
it's nothing, then why do you keep coming back to comment and tell me it's nothing? Is that a projection?
I agree. I don't deny that. The question is that the goal? Is that the strategy?
Scott is not a
Is that the
denier.
outcome? I mean, if the outcome is regime change, I don't know that just the weakening is going to do it. If it's to get the nuclear material, I definitely think that's not going to do it. Unless we just utterly conquer them, which is going to take boots on the ground, which I don't think we're going to do. I don't know what the answer is.
Okay, but to the question du jour, how do you reckon the mullahs are reacting to this latest verbal salvo from the president?
Yeah, I think. Look, I think they're dug in. I don't think. I mean, how serious do you think they're taking Trump? How serious does anybody take Trump with the bluster? You never know what he's going to say from one day to the next. No, I think his fans would say that's an advantage. He's unpredictable, right? And people say that's what we need, an unpredictable disruptor. I think his critics would say he's a bullshit artist, and maybe his threats aren't as effective because he says 16 things a day and puts it all on social media. That's the thing. I mean, how effective is the negotiation stuff?
Dad? No, I'm not your dad.
I mean,
You gotta get on your phone and call your daddy.
I can
This
see
is the wrong phone call for daddy.
Stop taking you seriously. I don't know. I mean, maybe the movie is terrified. I
don't know.
It doesn't strike me. It doesn't feel that way to me. But what do I know? But it doesn't. They seem pretty defiant, right? I mean, they don't seem as though, at least rhetorically, that they're buckling or softening.
Thank you, Scott. We'll go to Yossi, followed by Amir.
So the last time Anson mentioned something about bringing all Americans together to support this war was on point. It was perfect. And I really want him to repeat what he said, because that's exactly what it needs to be happening. So the best, like the countries, like the regimes, like Iranian regime, you cannot bomb them. You cannot threaten them. They thrive on it.
Oops, did we lose you, Yossi?
I think so.
Okay, so especially towards foreign attacks, and especially towards Israel and America, this whole war against imperialism, that's that. So military strikes at some point even strengthen of this regime, and at some point gathers people, the nationalists around the flag. So what can be done? What Trump is doing is by taking the military action and diplomacy and the blockade and all that. It's effective. It's going to take a long time. I'm not sure if it's in Trump's attention span or but what is more effective is the targeted sanctions. If I'm saying this for people who are against the war, who still believe that diplomacy with a legitimate, regime is possible. So the whole sanction, a general sanction, is not working. It affects and harms the general population. But targeted sanctions against specific individuals, against companies, against organizations, against IRGC, against that oppression power against those who works in the laws in the legal system and have like they execute people on daily basis. Those are the targets. They need their funds, like where you know the resources, the way that they fund their proxies, the Houthis at this moment. Those are the you know where the sanctions should be, not like in population in general, because again that would work for in benefit of the narrative created by the regime. This is a regime that worked for 47 years by creating a narrative. That's how they gained legitimacy, and especially right now, like they were able to use this whole movement against Israel and like this pro-Palestine thing, that like this the re-emerge of that movement is so beneficial to this murderous regime that they use them to do more executions on daily basis, to put more pressure on people, to arrest more people, to call them spies, like the and everything and all that. So the sanctions, targeted sanctions, supporting supporting the any military action, like any negativity, anything. It's been reflected on it, like you said, you want to be in a room, like a Farsi speaker in a room when the regime people they're talking. That's what they're talking. They consider this victory as long as they stand and they see people against this war in Western Hemisphere. They consider it a victory. That's what victory means to them. As long as they stand, it's victory. They don't need to respond to people. They are not a government. They're not a state so that they have people to govern and to respond to. The problem is, like, Trump is looking at them as a legitimate government. This is this is putting the whole thing in the wrong frame and looking at it with the wrong lens. So um, you cannot bring them to negotiation table. This is the thing. What they're doing at the moment, like you give them in a silver plate the best MOU possible. The whole world was complaining about it. So and look what happened. 2 days later, they broke the ceasefire. They broke the first rule on the MOU. Why? Because Iran, because they need to, this is their way to justify their incompetence. They can't control the inflation. Today, they announced the inflation 88%. 88% inflation is, it's, I don't even have a word to describe that. So what they benefit from is to create this tension to keep the oil prices above $80 a barrel, which, and like internationally, and also like attacking is kind of respond to their base in Iran, because they're not like the government for all Iranians, just for their own supporters. Okay, for it, so it has that domestic use also. It has that. So they say, look, we're taking the revenge of the supreme leader. So it's but how you're going to do it when you're not, it's an asymmetric war. Like everybody thinks that, oh, they resist in front of the strongest power. First of all, the strongest military power in the world did not bring their A game to this war. So this is really a false comparison on that matter. And I think people in general, they don't have this image of how a blockade in a strait works. So all you need to do, you don't need mining, you don't need anything. All you need is to threaten the security. So there won't be any insurance. So the ships won't move. There's no transition. That's as simple as that. You don't need any military power. You don't need anything. It's more simple than people think. So you cannot say that America is like military losing to Iran. please, it's ridiculous. And so, but I understand these empty threats that comes from Trump that I threaten the infrastructure, all that. They're not going to work because Iran, especially if it's targeted to Iranian government, they know that Trump cannot do it. It's against the Geneva Convention, and he has to respond. So they're not responding to anyone, but America and Israel do. So it's not effective. Okay, so the first the sanction to target the targeted people, the targeted organization, and organize the opposition inside and outside Iran. Allow, facilitate the communications. That's what the dictatorships, the fascist regime, the totalitarian regimes does. They keep people separated. They, the divide and conquer. That's what they do. So bring them together. Look at Bibi. Look at Netanyahu. Look how he addresses Iranian people. He comes and he looks at the camera and he talks directly to people because he knows that they are the boots on the ground. He is using the real resource and the real power, which is the Iranian people who are like 70, 80% against this regime at the verge price. Every moment we saw an example of that 2 months. Like again, after all that massacre on February, they rushed to the news to help people, to bring them down to stop the hangings. So the will is still there. They've been shot. There were 3 people killed. This is what has to be happening. You need to enforce people by addressing them directly, by telling them, I am doing this for you. If he wants to, brag and lie, this is what he has to do. He has to meet with the opposition outside Iran instead of keep trying to negotiate with this illegitimate regime. That, something that I haven't seen the American media talk about is that they evacuate the embassies in Tehran. French embassy, UK embassy, all the Europeans evacuate. So it's a good sign. It means that it shows that something big is coming, the rise of, military actions from America, or it means that they are joining this war. They are slowly willing to do. But the Trump's biggest mistake was America's biggest, and something. It's more the strongest power, coalition. America has this hegemony because it had the power of coalition with the world. You ignore that, Mr. President, before going to a war with Iran? That is a mistake. And what I'm looking for is if he starts to change his narrative, talks to Iranian people, have like these unofficial meeting with the opposition, but it's not going to happen unless he wants to talk to the regime. But I hope that now he sees that it's going nowhere, the negotiations. But so that's it. Organize the opposition, address the people, count on them as the boots on the ground, have their facilitate the communications, and on targeting the IRGC people, the people in charge. This stop of the flow. You see, there were saying fears. If Iran stopped selling oil, the oil prices will spike to $300. It's been 2 weeks. Iran does nothing, nothing happened, hasn't been selling anything, not 1 barrel. What happened? Nothing. So I think this Strait of Hormuz is not another, like, unlike what the public opinion is not another atomic bomb. It's not their leverage. As a matter of fact, they're understanding that your geography is not your power, is not your strength, your strategy, your knowledge. This is your power. They're finding another way. There's this, like, this second way that they're opening. There are, like, other pipes opening from Saudi Arabia. So it's already losing its power and leverage for Iran. So instead of expecting things to happen tomorrow, just give it a little bit of time. Try to see it, not, just put this, something that Marshall said like on previous times that you were talking about Iran, that the hatred for Trump, sometimes this trend of hatred for imperialism, Zionism, and all that, kind of blind people to see and, like, allow this narrative of Islamic Republic of this is an illegitimate war, which is not based on R2P. It is a very legitimate war. So, and all that, and, like, that very false narrative, which is I'm sorry, I've been, like, going on this rant, but I can even explain to you why this is not an Israel war. This is completely and 100% American war. It is somehow a proxy war. Iran is a proxy war for China, completely different.
Yeah, I actually wrote about it today, Yassi. Thank you, about it becoming a proxy war, and not just for China, but for Russia as well. I think we're involved in a proxy war right now. Maybe that's fodder for another gathering. But the Chinese, Reuters reported today, are sending shoulder missiles to
Yes.
400 of them to Iran. And of course, it's been previously reported that the Russians are providing satellite imagery to help the Iranians attack U.S. military assets in the Gulf. And I think probably none of these nation states want to acknowledge for the record that there's a proxy war because they don't want things to accelerate. But clearly there is a proxy war, and you're absolutely right about China. I think also, Yassi, given the several interruptions we had earlier, that perhaps the regime is more concerned about what's said in the critical thinking forum than what the President of the United States says to Fox. Because they don't want the free flow of information here.
You're right. You're right. That's why I said it is so important to be supportive instead of, my party, my Democratic Party, really, like, let me down on this. This affiliation for the party, when it blinds you to support your country, when it blinds you to see the humanitarian action that is happening in war.
By the way, with regard to Iran's paying attention to us here, I know, and Alan will recall this, that back during the period of time that the Iranians snagged those British Royal Navy sailors and Marines, that the Iranian government was monitoring. This was not on Clubhouse, of course. This was before Clubhouse's inception. This was on our previous platform. But I have it in writing that they heard the words that were being expressed in this forum, in what is now known as the Critical Thinking Forum on Clubhouse. So they're paying attention, and I'm certain that those agents who try to disrupt whenever we have this discussion and try to silence the voices of Persians are operating at the behest of the Iranian government. About that in my mind. Amir, followed by Brian, and thank you for that, Yassi. Amir.
I will carry everybody. Well, some of the things that I was saying to Trevor, it's already been covered by Yossi, so I'm not going to repeat those. I will stress on the political strategy of Trump that Yossi mentioned. That's been very little. Not only sort of Trump has pissed off the potential allies, but also done nothing effectively on enabling a sort of, or encouraging solidarity, if you like, amongst the opposition groups outside Iran. Perhaps even government in exile wouldn't be out of the question, on the political front. There are various ways of very effective strategies which he could adopt, which would help him. But in any case, so avoiding what I was going to say, because most of it has been covered, I'd just like to very quickly, Gary, if you don't mind, I'd like to pay a tribute to the young person that was hung today in Isfahan. He was executed. A massive crowd had gathered to protest against this execution, and it was obviously to no avail. It was really heart-wrenching. It was. I actually cried, to be honest with you. He was in his 20s. He actually put the rope around his neck himself, and he gave a victory sign and a heart to everyone. And this kind of bravery is absolutely unprecedented amongst the people. And he was only a young man, in his 20s. Just imagine how his parents felt witnessing this. Excuse me. So these public executions, they're obviously partly to create fear amongst the people, horror, fear amongst the people, and also to deter future uprising. But that is not the whole story. It also shows how audacious the regime has become. Not only in public executions without any care, even though a lot of people gather, thousands gather, but also is shown by attacking U.S. base in Jordan. There is a clear message here. This is a furthest base away from Iran. This is sending a clear message of boldness, of, if you like, dominance, not just to the internal, but also to the external audience. This needs to be taken seriously, But at the same time, Gary, let me tell you, the regime is also well aware of its own weaknesses. First of all, it's hated by the majority. The 70-80% that Yasser mentioned is really on the small side. It's probably more than that. The regime probably only has about 10% supporters. It has a serious failing economy. It cannot even pay wages. Inflation is close to hyper. It really is likely to run away in the months to come. So the regime is desperate, is absolutely desperate to come out of these by somehow.
Well, if they're so desperate, why are they dragging their feet at the bargaining table? And does these kinds of pronouncements, or do these kinds of pronouncements of the president force them to act in their own best self-interest by finding a way out of this quagmire that they find themselves into as well? Or are they just ignoring the bombastic pronouncements of the president, Amir?
No, well, I was just going to finish my sentence by saying they're desperate to come out of this, saving face, but on their own terms. And their own terms is very simple. Their own terms is, get out of here, Mr. America. We don't need you in the region. We are the regional superpower. And do shut up, 90 million. We are the boss here. That is how they are desperate, but that is the terms that they're after. So,
well, those terms aren't palatable to the president, I don't think.
Sorry, say again?
Those terms are not palatable to President Trump, I do not think.
Well, I do hope not too. But one thing's for sure, they're not sitting on their flying carpets, drinking tea and laughing their heads off, as you mentioned earlier. You know, I think Netanyahu understands this better than anybody else. And I think, you know, following his meeting today with Trump, I think Trump also now understands it better. And you know, we shall see what action Trump takes, you know, tonight, tomorrow night, I don't know. But at the same time, you saw Irakchi, the foreign minister of Iran, visiting China. So we know what all that is about. I'm absolutely certain that Irakchi is going to put Iran on the table for China, providing China makes sure that they do stay in power. It's as simple as that. It is not so much a proxy war because U.S. is on one side. So you know it's not a fully fledged neutral proxy, but it's certainly proxy from China and Russia point of view. Russia is not just providing imagery. Russia is also providing GLaSSNOS satellite, very precise military rate satellite location finding, which they've got of their own. I mean, GPS may be close to Iran, but GLaSSNOS isn't, the Chinese isn't. So this is kind of a very serious situation. And if it's not taken seriously by the American public in the terms that they're not providing the support that Trump needs, then they're going to, as I said before, this can of worms which was opened on 28th of February is going to turn into a barrel of snakes before you know it. You're going to have to deal with it somehow. You've started it, you have to finish it.
So the bottom line then, Amir, and excellent analysis, do they even give a damn what the president says when he makes these comments? Or does it cause them to sit up and take notice?
I think they don't give a damn what he says, but they do give a damn what he does. And as Marshall says, let's wait and see what he does, because as I've said many times before, I don't really care what he says. I'm more interested in the trajectory of what he does. And let's see what he does.
Thank you, Amir.
Amir, I think China and Russia, they are more precisely pay attention to Trump, what he say and what he does, than Iran themselves. That's the thing is, this is not just the war between Iran and you know, United States.
No, 100%. This is what I was basically. So the proxy is Iran's proxy. Iran is the proxy of China and Russia, facing America. But America itself is entering. I mean, America and Israel, let's say, itself are entering on one side, and Iran on the other side, but certainly being helped without any doubt. I mean, it's just, it needs to be seen the way it is. And that point again, it just needs reinforcing that on the political strategy, Trump has to start rethinking, and his Trump circle of influence or advisors, they have to start taking this seriously. They have to do, at least they have to, if they can't sort of enable, they can encourage, they can talk about it, create forum for solidarity amongst the opposition groups. There is this intention is there. There's plenty of groups in Clubhouse, which I join now and again. There are talks about it, but I think, if there was encouragement from someone like President Trump, this would be, I mean, the Yossi made a very good point. When Netanyahu speaks, he addresses people. I mean, have you ever heard Trump addressing people? Okay, he said to stay at home at the most critical time, which was completely the opposite. So, I mean, there are issues on Trump's strategy which obviously needs to be addressed, and let's hope he's listening to us, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you, Amir. We'll go to David, followed by Marat.
Hey, Gary. Good to be back in the room. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a point where the old analogy to the Chicken Little reference where they keep saying the sky is falling. At some point, people stop believing, the sky is going to fall. And I think the Iranians are at a point where they might be viewing our commander in chief as Chicken Little, unless, of course, there's a full blown outbreak in this war. You got to back your words with actions at some point. And the stock market today obviously is rallying and doesn't believe the bluster. They believe that Iran is probably has checkmated the region. Not only that, Gary, we're seeing the Houthis implement the same playbook with regard to earning tolls out of the Red Sea. So they're seeing money-making opportunity with regard to the Quagmire. Iran is debating with Oman as to how to maybe divvy up these spoils. And, if anybody wants to, excuse me, and Trump's a master at making money out of hay where there is none to be made. I mean, with regard to our tariffs, the shakedown of countries across the globe, and so forth. So it probably is chafing him that Iran has us by the tail with this ability to earn money off of the worldwide meltdown in the economy with global shipments. China, on the other hand, too, Gary, is also deeply invested in the Middle East. Billions of dollars projects in oil exploration as well as real estate and other forms of investments. So it's not lost on them that while they want to pretend that we're not involved in a proxy war, they're absolutely scared and probably worried that a lot of their investments are going up in smoke. And not only that, the fact that some of their investments have actually been bombed by the Iranians in those areas. So there's losses all the way around, and it's how much more pain can we take? I mean, this has got to be Trump's moment where is he Gerald R. Ford? I believe he was the president, evacuating Saigon at the 11th hour. I mean, at some point, are we just going to have to leave this mission and, call it a day and go home? Otherwise, I mean, this is not going to end well.
So you're focusing on the domestic pressures on the president, but the question actually is, when the president makes comments such as the one that he made to Fox News today, that we're going to bomb the fucking shit out of them. That's his words, not mine. Does that change the dynamic any? Does it cause Iran to sit up and take notice? Does it cause them to say, maybe we need to back off from attacking U.S. military bases, which his comment was, there's a direct correlation there, it was a response to. Or do they just laugh? And maybe I'm taking it to too much of a, maybe it's somewhere in between the two, but I kind of get the impression that they're laughing at him at this point. But I could be wrong, but I'm just wondering, will you?
Oh, he's how many weight? I mean, he already talked about bombing their civilization. I mean, when you talk about bombing a civilization into the Stone Age, it doesn't get much worse than that. If that's, and then if your response after saying that isn't that you're still not in the Stone Age, then what swear words going to do to the regime? I mean, saying come and get us. They're basically saying come and get us. And
if that assessment is accurate, that's a great analogy. If when the president said we're going to bomb them back to the Stone Age, and that seemed to have no effect on their demeanor towards the prosecution of this war, why does the president, do you think, make comments such as the ones he made this morning when history has shown that it has little to no effect on the regime, if you're accurate in that assessment?
So the reason he does it, Gary, is because he has to message to his base that he's in charge, that we have options, that there's a chunk of America that it's like, I don't know if you've ever had a disappointing Christmas growing up, Gary, where you wanted that new shiny toy, and your dad might have made some
Maybe
overtures or whatever.
Hanukkah. Maybe on Hanukkah.
Or Hanukkah, excuse me, Gary. Excuse me, I forgot about Hanukkah. Yeah, Hanukkah, right? So, and then Hanukkah shows up, and you go to open up your gifts, and that shiny toy isn't there. But you still love your mom and dad. You're still looking at your mom and dad as wonderful people.
No. Since that day, I've hated my parents. I've never gotten over it.
People, it's emblematic of the American people who voted for him, that they're still going to love their leader. They're still going to say, "Oh well, Trump, we'll give him, we'll hang in there, Trump. You know, we're in the, you know, you're going 12 rounds with Iran, and you know, we're waiting for the knockout punch." So there's a level of the the voting public that are still in his corner. But if he stops talking the big game, he's going to lose a lot of those people. He's going to appear weak. He's going to appear feckless, and I think he's trying to avoid that.
How can you avoid it when the polling, including the latest polling today from CNN, shows him way underwater, especially with regard to Iran? It's not working.
But is he underwater with his base? Is he underwater with his base? That's the question.
Probably not, but
states.
But also he's not running for re-election either, or maybe he is. He claims he is. I don't know.
Yeah. So the midterms, you know, depending on where the battlegrounds are in the midterms and how they're going to swing Democrat or Republican, is that base of his are they going to abandon him? I mean, we've seen what the Pentagon's been doing with regard to scrubbing the data or the intel coming back on the deaths and injured. They're hiding some of the more disastrous components of this campaign. Do we really know the death count number?
I think the death count we know, but what they've done is that they've reclassified things. So if an American soldier is killed as a result of Iranian armaments in Iraq, they claim that it has nothing to do with this war.
Yeah, see, I mean, that's just gamemanship with American lives. It's not, you know, it's another way to distort how badly this has gone. And of course, the ultimate sacrifices are being made in terms of the loss of our men and women in uniform, which could go up very substantially, Gary, if we're not careful. There's also talk that we've hemorrhaged our arsenal, our defense arsenal. That how effective can we be if we can't defend our aircraft carriers and our borders with Israel and some of our bases in the Gulf states? So at some point, I mean, they need to take stock. And Hegseth doesn't have a whole lot of answers when he's called on the Hill to account for this. I mean, this is absolute mismanagement 101. And so I think there's a whole lot of moving parts here, Gary, that beg to question our ability to do what he's saying. So with that, I think.
Well, don't sell Hegseth short, because he's going to inject all service members over the age of 30, including the women with testosterone. So we're good hands. Don't worry.
Okay.
He'll reach a new low, we promise.
Thank you, David. We'll go to number one, followed by Silly.
Hi, Gary. Hello, everyone. What I've been hearing is a lot of passion, a lot of wishes, a lot of conflicting desires. And the issue is, when it comes to politics, we have to look at national interests and realities. The reality is, this is a conflict with different sides looking at it with different levels of importance or value. As everyone pointed out, we are dealing with a regime in Tehran that just recently, in January 8th and 9th, massacred tens of thousands of their own population in 2 nights, in 2 days, with guns, killing them. They cannot trust their own population. They're scared to death for their lives. So for them, it's a fight to death. They don't care. You can go hit all the bridges, all the refineries, all the power plants. They're going to fight all the way till they're gone, completely gone. Because if they let up, their own people will take care of them. So they're just going to fight all the way. This war is not that important for us, to be honest. That's the difference we are dealing here. We're dealing with one side fighting for the survival, fighting for the lives on the other side, and also they have taken all the Iranian people as hostages. I mean, Iranian people are allies, they're pro-West, they're not anti-Israel, and that's the strategic asset in the region. This is the one we want to keep and win. So now what we have is an imbalance of desires and wills in a fight. We have an imbalance of importance, and then we have run out of military targets to hit, regardless of what they tell you. Once you have hit 20,000 targets over the 12-day war and the 40-day war, and this past 7 days to 13 days of bombing, there isn't really any military targets left. All you're left with civilian infrastructure, bridges, refineries, power plants, which will, if you hit them, you make the life more miserable for the same people that are our strategic allies and assets. These are the people we need to have a future for Iran, to have Iran participating in a region in a constructive manner. These are the people we need. And if we just hit those, we're going to create more supporters for the regime. So we have to be very careful what we do. The reality is, as I said, this is just a political loss for the Republicans. It's not that important. As I said previously in this room, even if they get most of their wish, which is what? $1 per barrel fee for going through Strait of Hormuz, since most refineries get 20 gallons out of a barrel, and there are other products that comes out of that barrel. Even if you take all the cost of the $1, that would be just 5 cents at the pump. That's not that important. It is important to get the oil flowing, to keep the energy getting to the markets and keep the economies. That's important. But I mean, what really Yassi and people, even me, we want this regime gone. We want this regime completely gone. But for that to happen, you need a land invasion. You need to go all the way to Tehran, and there's no political will for it. And more importantly, there's no time, because we have an election coming in this country, and the election is 3 months away. There is no time to prepare for a land invasion in 3 months. There is no time to take care of the regime in 3 months. And who knows what's going to happen in the election. And if you look at it, we have conflicting interests on both sides. The Israelis have their election on what, October 27, 28, just about the same time as we do. Netanyahu wants the war, the conflict to go on, because if it stops, he's going to lose, because he has gained nothing for his voters. On the other hand, the Republicans want to stop it now so they can maybe win the election. So these are conflicting interests, even the two sides on this side. And as I said, this is only a political fight here, not for the survival of the country. Opening of the strait, letting the oil flow through, it's important, but that is not the issue that some people are talking about. The removal of the regime requires commitment that is not in this room, it's not in Washington, it's not anywhere. And there is not enough time before the elections for it to happen. And as I said, even with our ally Israel, we have conflict of interest. Netanyahu wants this to continue. Republicans want to stop, which is, in my view, is very conflicting. And as I said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think it's in our national interest to continue fighting a war that it's not winnable. It cannot end. The only way is to come up with some sort of a political solution, sanction the people who are torturing and killing Iranian people. And as you put it the other day, you can play guacamole any day with them, no problem. But hitting infrastructure, refineries is going to backfire. It's going to hurt the people who are our allies. So as I said, it's very conflicting interests here, lots of passion and emotion. I'm all with them, but sanity and logic dictates to follow national interest. because our strategic threat is China, and the biggest winner of this conflict has been China from day one, and Russia. These are the two winners of this conflict. If we could do what was supposed to happen for the regime to disappear in 3 days or 3 weeks, that would have been a great strategic win. It didn't happen. It's not going to happen. So we have to be realistic, and just going after infrastructure in Iran is not going to help anybody, is not going to help us, is not going to help the suffering people of Iran, and it's not good for anybody other than, I don't know, anybody who's crazy just wants to kill people for no reason. There has to be a purpose, a reason, a clear goal. And I don't see us winning this war in 3 months before the election. All we can do is add to the suffering of the Iranian people and create confusion and not achieve anything. So I think it's time for a political solution. I don't know how, but that's the only way I can see it. Again, as I said, this is just a matter of political gain for us. It's not life and death, but for the regime and the lackeys, it's life and death. So that. Those are my words, Gary. And thank you for your good rooms all the time.
So do you reckon that the regime's assessment is the same as yours? And if so, does that mean that they necessarily do not take to heart these increasing threats that come out of the mouth of President Trump?
It's not that they have no choice, Gary. Whether they believe it or don't believe it, they're going to act the same way. Because if they let up, the Iranian people are going to kill them all. So they have to fight till last one of them. And that's
no, I get that. I get that. But in terms of the president claiming that that the United States is going to vastly increase the prosecution of this war, do you think that they take him at his word, or do they question his veracity?
I think I'm going to repeat what I said, Gary. They do not care whether he goes all the way and does what he says or he doesn't do it. Either way, in their calculus, they have to behave the same way. In fact, actually, I have heard in some of these Persian rooms that some of these guys are calculating that maybe this is a trick by the Trump administration, because they just, once the price of oil goes up, they talk about stopping, not doing anything, so the price can come back down. Then they go back, start hitting. The number of the missiles are limited. They're not reproducing them. So what's happening is the price of the oil comes down, Trump starts hitting them, they start using up some of the stored missiles they have, and then the price goes up, then Trump cools down, then it comes back down. So actually, they think right now the only threat they have is if Trump goes after the infrastructure, they're going to hit everything the Saudis, Kuwaitis, Emiratis have, just going to cause mayhem in the oil market. They can do it today. But if this goes on, this going slow and coming back, going slow and coming back, as if you can exhaust the stockpile of weapons or missiles while you monitor the price of oil to go too high, to cause too much damage, they probably think of it as a trick by Trump. That, so that's why they are escalating now. That's why they want it to either go all the way so they can actually do the real threat that they have been threatening to do, which is take out all the oil installation of Saudis and Emiratis and Kuwaitis and Qatari gas fields, because they can do that today. But if this goes on for a long time, you keep exhausting the supply of missiles, gradually they're not going to have anything left to cause that doomsday scenario that they could respond to. So I don't know, these are all conflicting things you hear. But the point is, only thing that's in our national interest is to get the oil flowing, open the Strait of Hormuz, and if we can take the regime out, we tried, we couldn't. And it's not going to happen in the next 3 months. That's my point.
I think the president has as big a veracity problem there, Iran, as he does here. When he says that the Strait of Hormuz is open and under the control of the United States, they know that not to be true. So most of what he has been saying and not delivering on adds to the question of his veracity. And you may be right that they don't care whether he uh, increases the use of munitions against the regime or not, that they have to take the tactic that they're taking now in order to protect them from being overthrown by their own people. That may be true, but I cannot imagine how they could take anything he says seriously because he's not been a man of his word. Now, conversely, I think that the administration has, on occasion, underestimated the veracity of the Iranians because they make promises, especially with regard to the MOU, that they don't adhere to. So, I mean, it's almost as if they deserve one another, I think. Except people suffer in the interim. Thank you, Moran. We'll go to Silly, followed by Malak.
Hi everyone. No, I'm getting a sense of deja vu from this U.S. war with Iran because I don't know how many times in history we've reached this point where America is bombing someone to ostensibly liberate them, right? And on the other hand, though, when the IRGC, when they crack down on protesters and stuff like that, that's also bad. And I think when you have a regime that is running around the region trying to claim land for their own, bombing people, just wreaking havoc, I think it's really time to rein Israel in, when they do all this. And more than all of that,
You're making this about Israel?
No. I'm making it about a bunch of things. Is there room for dissenting opinion here? Or am I supposed to?
Yes, I'm just asking. I'm not saying that you can't make the comment. I'm asking you: is that what you are doing? Is making this about Israel?
No, I'm saying there's a country in the region that, on a religious basis, is committing large amounts of violence. So that is to me Israel, right? But let me finish my point, and then you can definitely.
But that's not the topic of the room. We're not talking about.
Sure. I think I misunderstood when you were talking about religious or people. I just assumed you were talking about Israel. That was just my assumption.
Don't assume anything. Look at the title of the room and stick to the topic.
Gary,
and as I had pointed out yesterday, if somebody strays from the topic in order to bring in a separate agenda, I am going to disallow them from speaking, whether I agree with them or not, because it got out of hand yesterday. Malik, followed by Daryl.
Can I go after, please?
Gary,
we go in order, in the order in which I see people. Malik, followed by Daryl.
I can't speak right at this moment. Could I go later, Gary?
Yep. Daryl, followed by El Normo.
Hey, Gary, I'm not going to ask if you can hear me.
Sorry, what did you say? I can't hear you.
Oh, Gary, really quickly, you asked about interviewing the guy who builds the bomb shelters. He would love to have an interview with you, so we'll figure out.
Bravo. Thank you, Daryl.
Absolutely. So, to the topic and to some of the points that were raised, that's why I came up, because if the idea is that this is possibly a proxy war, in a sense, right, then all Iran has to do, all the regime has to do is, Trump makes a threat, or the administration, makes a threat, or the intelligence agencies make a threat. All the regime has to do is look to their right, to their, to the whichever foreign minister from China is there, and says, hey, how do we respond to this, right? So if you look at what has been happening. If this really is a proxy war, why would Iran or the regime care about Trump's pronouncements? To something I think was Moran said earlier. What are we going to bomb now? We're going to bomb dust? I believe we already have bombed all of the strategic targets. So now we're dropping bombs on just places we've already bombed. And why? What are we doing but wasting ammunition? So if this really is a proxy war, what does China, maybe Russia, but not so much Russia, right? But what does China want out of this? And, we've been doing these rooms for months now, and one of the things I've always said is that China wants the end of the petrodollar. Right? China in 21 or 22 signed a $400 billion 25-year investment in Iran. 4 days ago, maybe 5 days ago, you can fact check me on that. But China's foreign minister, Wang, urged for the US not to escalate this because he said that China is prepared to enter this conflict in a more direct way. You can quote, that's that's a rough quote. That's how I remember the statement actually being posted. So the question now becomes, if this is a proxy war, and we've said publicly, I don't believe we actually have, but we said publicly we have not wasted, we have used a lot of our munitions. I think the question becomes, are we ready, the United States of America, are we ready to engage with China if China feels or declares they are going to take this is his quote, a more active role in this conversation? We're saying publicly we don't have the munitions. We now have Ukraine attacking Iranian cargo ships. Are we as a nation ready for what is essentially World War III? It doesn't necessarily have to be nuclear, but are we ready for the conflict that involves the biggest players on the map? That is, in effect, World War III.
I don't think our Navy is. I read a paper about the United States and Japan from a group called the National Interest, and the thesis of the paper was that the United States, the thesis is this: those fleets that are brittle can crack under pressure no matter how good they are. Those fleets that are resilient, meaning they have a defense industrial base, can afford to pump out more. And that amounts to the Chinese knocking out part of the 7th Fleet in the South China Sea with their area access, area denial tactics. And the United States defense industrial base would take a couple of years to reproduce another carrier. Right? So, the thesis was that we're Japan before World War II. Fleet's the best in the world, sailors best in the world, equipment the best in the world, but we're brittle because we don't have anything to be able to replace the ships that are sunk. Which leads me back to this other argument that I read years ago, which was we should have smaller aircraft carriers rather than larger ones. That way you're not sinking, $22 billion ship in one shot.
And to my friend down there, Yassi's point was that we have to, we should look at this, Gary, we've joked about if we were Tom Clancy writing a novel, if we were writing this, it would be very strategically advantageous to a country like China who wants to end American economic dominance on this planet to use a country like Iran to let us get tired of this boxing match. We're in the sixth round, our arms are tired, and China's actually pronouncing, okay, we're ready to get into this. China last week sent one of their foreign ministers to Japan. They had a secret conversation. Yesterday, Japan started calling back all of its currency from around the world. There are a lot of things happening, right now, globally, that, could be bigger than
Daryl, why do you call back your currency? What's the rationale for that?
Well, because you want to bring back your dollars because you possibly see that you're not going to need so much dollars to trade oil anymore. You might just be looking to go back to gold. China has actually, and I know Gary's going to yell at me for going off topic, but China has actually banned paper gold trading because China's potentially looking to they've been stockpiling for the past 20 years gold. What that means is that we could potentially be going back to to global currencies based on gold if oil is not settling in US dollars anymore. But again, not trying to get yelled at by Gary, but it's more so, why would Iran care about what Trump says if they believe that their coach, their sparring partner, their China in chief is telling them, hey, don't worry, we have your back and we're ready to get into this. Once the foreign minister kind of made that pronouncement, I think 5 days ago, the things have changed. China's got a lot of money invested in Iran. And, someone, I think it was Mahan who said earlier, we've already bombed some of their investments. It's at some point, this is either going to escalate into that thing, or America is going to say, hey, this is Reza, your mic is open. That's okay. Or America's going to have to figure out what fight it wants to have, and is that fight worth it?
Maybe it's the guns of August all over again.
Yeah.
Sleepwalking slowly into a global conflict. And then by the time you realize you're in the middle of it, you have neither the munitions nor the people.
You're about to get knocked out by the biggest guy in the room. Yes.
Sorry, we had a little technical problem here, and I lost audio. Thank you.
You all right there, Gary?
Yeah, I'm fine. I just lost audio.
It's the Chinese Communist Party, Gary. They don't want us talking about it.
Could be.
Daryl, that's why you didn't get yelled at. He couldn't hear you.
I don't yell at Daryl. Do I? Malik, are you back? Normal followed by Sano.
Alrighty then. I always like to hear varied perspectives. What Trump has done is something that we should have done half a century ago, when it would have been easier, but we didn't have the appetite for it. Because half a century ago we had a really sweet man named Jimmy Carter, president, who misread this situation entirely. Misread the movement of the Ayatollah Khomeini, this horrible criminal, and didn't realize that it was a cancer in the region, in the world, because it is an apocalyptic cult that, like communism, like Stalin, that wants to slaughter its own people and enrich and empower itself. Now it's half a century later, and this cancer took over Lebanon, took over Syria, it's trying to take over Yemen, and it's got really big forces in Yemen, took over Gaza, and took over much of Iraq. I'm just counting on my fingers because, my math needs a little help. That's 4 countries and, let's say 3 countries and 2 partial. Gaza, whatever that is, if it's Palestine, if it's part of Egypt, if it's part of Israel, it's not undetermined.
It's a territory.
Which is what? It's undetermined. It's a territory. And who owns it? Who's it? And it's ungoverned, ungovernable. And part of Iraq. Trump has exposed all of this, whether or not we want to. Not necessarily because he's a genius, he's not. Although I should say that Trump has been talking about hitting Iran since the early 80s, because he felt that we were humiliated by the 1979 takeover of our embassy, by students and communists, by the way, whom this regime, of course, slaughtered shortly thereafter, because that's the kind of folks they are. Murderous, treacherous, and hungry to enrich themselves. I watched great reports recently from McNeil Lehrer at the time of the revolution, 78 and 79, and how we completely misread this situation. So let me, just a little context, and thanks for indulging me. Are Trump's threats against Iran effective? Nobody has hit them like we're hitting them. Nobody has done the kind of damage that we're doing to these mullahs slaughtering their supreme leader, achieving almost immediate air superiority and air dominance. The supreme leader is dead, the leadership is dead, their military is in shambles. So one thing I think they know is that they're afraid of Trump. Another thing that we know is that they're afraid of Israel, which is why we haven't seen them attack Israel lately, because we know Israel is absolutely ready to knock them from here to kingdom come. Again, the IRGC, not the Iranian people, which is interesting. So the U.S. military has been preparing for this for half a century. Israel's been preparing for this for almost as long. And this means liberating the Persian people, a beautiful people, as I said here before, with beautiful...
I love you, man.
Beautiful cinema. Whoever is saying that, thank you. Beautiful culture, beautiful food, beautiful art. It's all being destroyed by these mullahs. These people, the beautiful people of this old civilization, are under the heel of this horrible despotic regime. Meanwhile, the Gulf nations fight back against this, the subversion of this regime. So what does China want, by the way, in past? China wants that strait open because they need the oil. China wants oil. And does China want to fight the U.S. economically? The U.S. is the power that created China's middle class. We're China's biggest customer. We have made China rich beyond all measure. They don't want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. So I don't agree that China wants to fight with us. So what I would say is that, to paraphrase Ronald Reagan, who we really underestimated at the time, we need to stay the course. We have exposed this horrible regime as a paper tiger. We have broken the ice. We have started smashing them. And once having done this, they will never, ever appear untouchable again. They will always know that the United States and Israel can slam them. If the United States decides to stop, and that's up to the President of the United States, not me, and not Bibi Netanyahu, Israel will hit them within an inch of their life because they are an intolerable cancer on the world, this Islamic Revolutionary Genocide Corps. Do they believe him? I think they see that Trump is as unpredictable and dishonest and disingenuous and tricky and deceitful as they are. They don't know which way to turn now because it doesn't really... Trump knew that the MOU was not binding. He's done 1 million MOUs. He lives on these phony deals. Will we get... I noticed the Dow took an 1,100 point drop today. I don't know if it'll come back, if Trump will make some other crazy announcement and bring it back up. I don't know. But I do know when it comes to the question of this room, that what we are doing against this cancer is effective, and we have to keep going and get it out. We don't leave a little bit of cancer in the body. We got to get it all out and make sure the margins are clean. Thank you so much, Gary.
Thank you, Norm. Sano, followed by Samat.
Hello, Gary. I think Mehran made a lot of valid points. At this point in the conflict, if the U.S., if Trump targets this Iranian infrastructure, doesn't help, actually it might even make things worse for America's position, because the most valuable ally that America has in this situation is the Iranian people, and they might lose them. Actually, I think IRGC wants that something like this happens and Iranian people suffer, so they say, you like America? This is America. But on the contrary, I think there are things that could lead in the right way. Well, we haven't seen any evidence that shows Trump acts based on a strategy or long-term plan. I think all the evidence we see, all the things that happen, point to the fact that actually Trump is acting based on his personal whims, and it just can change like this with a glass from like this to that all of a sudden, and that won't work. But I think on the contrary, what will work is like there are two or three things that could work. One is targeting heads of the regime, if that is still possible, as they did at the beginning, and that was done by the help of Israel and especially Netanyahu, with intelligence help and practical help on the ground. They started by hitting the supreme leader. That was amazing news for millions and millions of Iranian people. Unfortunately, it didn't continue like that. Israel had the chance of hitting also Ghalibaf, but Trump stopped them because he wanted to deal with Ghalibaf, and he thought he's a very, logical man we can come with an agreement with. And he has, I think so far he has confessed he was wrong. These are sick people. You cannot deal with them. They are just crazy. You cannot trust their work. Yeah, he has admitted that. But again, he's going back to like, oh no, they are logical people we can deal with. So this doesn't work that way. So one of the things, one of the strategies that could work is decapitating, hitting the regime heads, but that works with the element of surprise. What has happened now, all the surprise is ruined with all the reports and Trump rambling on Truth Social and then things that leak to the newspapers, Wall Street Journal is reporting, all media are reporting. There is no surprise left. So they will, regime heads, which are RGC heads, they will go back to their tunnels and to their holes. It will be much more difficult to hit them. There is another thing that Israel started doing, but they didn't continue, and that is extremely effective. At some point, they started targeting the checkpoints. The checkpoints are now the regime's tool to project power against the Iranian people. Israel started targeting them by drones. I don't know if they were FPV drones controlled by Mossad agents on the ground, or as some people speculate, they were released by some kind of aircraft from above, and at enormous cost, they were directed by the help of the agents, like the people they have on the ground, to the coordinates that the checkpoints were there. But that was extremely effective. If they just continued, like imagine they would continue that for a month or 2 months, it would wreak havoc in all the regime operation forces, a lot of whom are not even Iranian. They are like Hashashabi from Iraq, Fatemi from Afghanistan, and they are projecting the regime's power to Iranian people. When you wreak havoc on them, and when they have casualties, then they will collapse very rapidly, and then Iranian people will have a big chance to rise up.
So with all that being said, the bottom line is, do they take him seriously, the mullahs?
I don't think they take Trump seriously, and that is why they are hitting US-related targets, but they are not hitting any Israel. Recently, they have not hit any target related to Israel because they are scared of Israel. But
How do you assess the fact that how do you assess the fact that the Saudis, for the first time publicly anyway, joined the United States in the retaliatory sorties last night?
I think the Saudis and the UAE and maybe even Bahrain, they are coming to realize the fact that when you act strong, then the IRGC, the generals, the Islamic regime, they might cave. But if you show weakness, they will become more and more audacious, and they will hit harder and harder. So I think they are coming to realize this finally.
Thank you, Sano. Maybe we're at a precipice of a change. We'll see. Saman, followed by Daryl.
Thank you, Gary. I'm hearing a lot of interesting information, but a lot of bad information. I do think that Trump's threats are effective because he is unpredictable, and that is his strategy. So when people come up and say, "Oh, well, I don't think Trump has a strategy. He's acting on a whim, like Sanu just did. That means that Trump's strategy is working because he wants people to be confused, to think he's working on a whim. Somebody started talking about the proxy war and that Iran needs to not worry about what Trump says and listen to China, and then they spread all this misinformation. The Chinese minister Wang specifically spoke about a return to negotiations. He also denied the fact that China was giving military assistance to Iran. So, but there is this propaganda, this psychological warfare that's being executed to try to scare the American people. Now, America is in the United States is in a direct conflict with the Islamic Republic of Iran, so that's not a proxy war. And even if allies are helping one side or the other, that's again not a proxy war. I don't know. People say proxy war, and that's supposed to make us think that they're some sort of political science expert. As far as what was said about
Well, I was the
Israel,
one who initially, and you may not have been in the room, raised the question of proxy. And I don't consider myself a political science expert, nor was I trying to present myself as one. But I raised it in the context of China is now providing weaponry for Iran to use against the United States. Russia is now providing satellite information, data, imagery to help Iran attack U.S. military bases. That's not proxy?
no, proxy. Those are allies helping each other. That's not a proxy war. A proxy war is when basically you hire mercenaries to fight on an almost neutral ground. That's a proxy war. It's not just allies helping.
Well, if you're correct, then I have, for my entire life, or my adult life, misused the terminology.
It's probably. I mean, I can recheck, but that's essentially what a proxy is. Allies helping each other doesn't make a proxy war. What was happening in certain third world nations?
It's an opportunity for the Russians to attack the United States without using Russian troops, much as the United States is arming Ukraine to attack Russia, not using American troops. That's not a proxy. That's not
proxies of the Russians and the Chinese.
Yeah, I think that
that would mean.
I mean, I don't want to get hung up in a semantics discussion, but I think that's what's being articulated, whether the terminology is right or not. That's what at least when I use the term proxy, what I have been trying to articulate.
Yeah, we can come back. You have rooms every day. We can come back and rehash that out. What was the other thing that they were saying? I'm getting feedback. That's thank you, Reza. I think the other thing that was being discussed is Israel's form of fighting. As far as Khamenei being killed, that was informed Israel that they were going to be meeting, and so to try to parse this out by saying that the United States intelligence is doing one thing and Israel intelligence is doing another thing is patently incorrect. It is United States CIA intelligence that told Israel that everybody was going to meet and that was an opportunity to take out Khamenei. But the bigger issue is, I think Israel there's an article out on Israel Hayom, and the source for the article is David Barnea, the former head of Mossad, and they have another source which is a secret Israel branch. And in that article, it talks about how the plan to attack Iran back in February was intended to be executed in May. But because of the protests that started in January, the 18th and 19th, they decided to push that plan ahead of time, and they frantically sped up the process to attack in late February. As part of the plan, there was a part of the plan was arming the Kurds, the Kurdish separatist groups on the border of Iran and Iraq, and having them enter Iran and help the Iranian people revolution. that part of the plan, according to the article and based on what we saw, was not executed. So I think a lot of people are saying that, are trying to make it sound like Trump is completely, doesn't know what he's doing, and that all the good ideas are coming from Israel. But the fact is that the initial attack, the original plan wasn't.
Yeah, but nobody
And in
is
fact-
saying that here. Nobody said that here. The question of the day is whether these threats, which really, but I guess the only other one that comes to the level of the one that was made today was bomb them back into, to the Stone Age. I think he used the terminology. Today it is, we're going to beat the fucking shit out of them. That's a quote from the President of the United States on the record in an interview with Trey Yingst at Fox News. So the question is not whether the Israelis are pulling the strings, as you are suggesting that several have suggested. That's not today's discussion. Today's discussion is when the president makes such pronouncements, does it have any effect on the Iranian regime? And I don't believe you're directly responding to that.
Gary, my point wasn't that Israel's pulling the strings or not. Sano said that everything Trump did, he didn't know what he's doing, he's acting on a whim, and that Israel was targeting the leaders and that Israel's intelligence was much better. So I was directly commenting to
I'll
that.
get that. I'll get that. And to that point, and that might have been made actually during that period of time that I lost audio, but to that point, there's no question, and I think you would agree with this, that there is immense underscored sharing of between the Israelis and the Americans. It's commingled. So I don't think we could even, if we wanted to dissect this, to do a pathological profile or an autopsy of the information, maybe is a better way of putting it, then we could determine whether it's Israeli information or American information. They commingle it in this regard, and it's a combined effort, I believe, between the intelligence agencies of both
Yeah, and to land on the main topic, I will say that by confusing the regime, Trump is being effective. Sometimes he's threatening them, sometimes he's trying to reach peace, and he's saying, okay, well, maybe they can be good people, maybe they're reasonable people. This is just a tactic to try to give them a cover and to say, yes, we are good people, let's, sign this agreement. So I think he is effective in confusing the opponent, and we'll see what happens. I think their goal is the same as what we all want, and it's not about the United States bombing them into regime change. It's about stopping the nuclear program and then helping Israel and the Iranian people reach their strategic goals if they have the will to do a significant portion of the work themselves. And I'll land there.
Thank you so much.
Gary,
Not to belabor the point, but the Oxford English Dictionary defines a proxy war as a war instigated by a major power which does not itself become involved. So there you go. Daryl, followed by Reza.
Hey, yeah, Gary, I just came back up because I was kind of commented directly on, and I actually wanted to read Encyclopedia Britannica. A proxy war is an armed conflict where major powers avoid fighting each other directly by instead supporting opposing local groups, smaller countries, or surrogate forces. So this idea that a proxy war is allies fighting allies, I repeat that rubbish that was just said, is usually what happens when someone has an agenda when they're speaking. I don't spread propaganda. I am a put my money where my mouth is guy. And if anyone says that I'm saying something incorrectly, I will put an open bet of $10,000 and I will wire the money to you, Gary, if I ever come into your room and say something that is factually not true.
Well, we
It's
can all say things that are factually not true inadvertently. I've done
Yeah.
it myself, so don't put your money on the line like that.
I'm a New
Because
Yorker.
we're all human beings, and I'm sure the time will come where I would have opportunity to collect, and I don't want to do that to you, Daryl.
Yeah,
But thank
yeah.
you. But thank you for defending yourself, as I also defended against the. I never heard the terminology. Using mercenaries is what a proxy war is, but maybe there are other definitions out there. I think, I'm radio, and sometimes if you want to be successful in radio, which is a very intimate, and what we're doing here is akin to that. This is audio, obviously. This is a very intimate setting, and so. The language does not necessarily have to be precise. The communication, your ability to communicate a thought has to be precise. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to communicate thoughts. And I think most people understood Daryl and most people understood me when we raised the question of whether a proxy war is underway. I don't think there were people who said, huh? What? Duh, that's not the definition of proxy war. I don't think that's what occurs here.
Gary, let me put it this way.
Wait up. Sorry, I gotta go. I gotta go in 5 minutes. I just have 1 minute.
You have to wait. I'm sorry, this is the way the room runs. Yes, Alan.
But let me put it this way. How about Iran is a proxy war with the United States for China, the United States financially and emotionally? What do you?
I think that is very likely true. Reza, followed by Alma.
Thank you so much, Gary. I have a podcast in 7 p.m. Eastern time, so that's why I've been doing a lot of interrupting. So listen, been drinking a lot of Refroig whiskey, so I'm a little bit tipsy. But listen,
always a good thing when you're about to do a podcast.
Exactly. So listen, I want to play a clip of my Instagram. Is that okay? Listen, I'm not a political person, and by the way, Gary, I'd love to have you on my podcast if you accept. But listen, I'm not a political person. I don't know a lot about politics, but what I do know is a lot about Iranian people because I'm Iranian. I'm Persian. And what Trump is not doing effectively is winning the mind share of the Iranian people. Initially, we were all pro-Trump, and we still are. I'm very pro-Trump, because if it was the Democrats, it would be a lot worse. If it was the Democrats, they'd be funding the IRGC. So fuck that shit, okay? But listen, Trump needs to be a little bit less manic. He needs to be a little bit more normal. And he needs to win the minds of the Iranian people. There was one guy on stage that I shouted him out. I forgot his name, but what's his name? I'm scrolling down. I can't see him, but he said all the right things. Listen, if you are an American or an international or non-Iranian person, you really have to understand Iranian people to get this shit. So let me just say, he used to be one of the biggest supporters. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. Imagine this. You're at a bar with your girlfriend, and when a 6'6" jacked bodybuilder starts hitting on her, you're not running up and swinging on that guy. You know what would happen. So you walk over and handle it like a man. Hey, bro, that's my girl. Cool. Now, if it was some scrawny little nerd doing the same thing, you'd shut that shit down fast. But if the guy was about your size, you might actually throw hands. Here's the reality. The IRGC is picking a fight with the most powerful military forces on earth, the United States and Israel, like they're the same size. They're not being brave, they're being reckless. And every time they escalate, it's the Iranian people who pay for it, their own people. They're risking the total destruction of their country just to prove a point that they can't back up. So let me say this clearly. the IRGC, and if you support the IRGC and what they're doing to Iran, you can go yourself too.
Okay,
all right.
thank you for that entertaining interlude.
Thank you so much,
Reza.
Gary.
I will
Thank
say
you.
that to your serious point here, before we even started, during our little warm-up before the show began, I said to Yasi that it's very unfortunate that the United States encouraged people to go to the streets, and then the people went to the streets and they were massacred, and inexcusable. Inexcusable. Got a couple more minutes, so I think we have time for Alma. Alma.
Yeah, good evening. Gonna try to answer the question directly. They are not very effective. And here's why. Because the mullahs have been around for so long, and with their GRC, IGRC thingy, these guys, I mean, initially they are smart enough to know that you take the United States military might lightly at your own peril. That's not a good idea. But they are so deeply entrenched in the country, and they're so used to this, and they play the long game so well, they're always counting on something changing or some sort of a scenario popping up that nobody was expecting that will end up saving them. They're willing to sit there and take it. Now, Trump is saying today that he's going to punish them really hard, and he will. I mean, there's no question about it. The U.S. military is capable of handing out serious punishment. But these guys, I mean, the threats, do they feel threatened? Yes, because, Israel and the United States bombed them before and killed a great number of their leaders, military leaders and politicians. But that's what they do. If they're fighting somebody who is much stronger than them, they'll sit there and wait. They'll respond whenever they can. They'll have one of their proxies respond if possible. The only bright hope I see here is that the U.S. is finally dealing with the militias in Iraq effectively, and they are trying to turn Iraq into a real country. Iraq has been, for the better part of 20 years now, basically a dumping ground for the mullahs of Iran, largely due to proximity to the same religious affiliation, and the fact that some Iraqis want to be Iranians more than the Iranians themselves. So by trying to split them, or by trying to make Iraq a real country, and there's a lot of news going on in Iraq about the government going around fighting corruption, finding money hidden in all sorts of places, exposing all the thieves and the crooks. That's in my opinion where the battle is going to be won, more than actual bombing of Iran. It will destroy a lot of the military capability of the mullahs, but the mullahs will go into hiding and they will bury themselves underground and hope that the U.S. will miss them. But they have no other plan. Their plan is to survive this one way or another. They've been at it for almost 50 years. They played on different variations or on different variables on the international scene, on the regional scene. They attack here, they withhold attack there, they support here, they deny support there. That's what they do. These guys are survivors, but they're not very good tacticians and they're not very good politicians. And certainly we were able to see that they're not very good at the military, militarily. They're unable to put up a good fight. So this will go on for a while.
Thank you, I gotta cut you off. We can't go on
Okay.
for a good while because we're out of time. Folks, we're here Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock New York time. So till 5 o'clock New York time on tomorrow. For the next edition of the Critical Thinking Forum, everybody be safe, be well, and peace out.
Is it done? I think it's over.